Please, please don't kick me. I'm already hurt, the young waitress whispered from the floor, her voice shaking so much the words almost broke apart. Her cheek was pressed against the cold, greasy tiles of the diner, one hand curled around her stomach where she'd landed. The man towering over her sneered, his shiny dress shoes inches from her ribs. A few seconds earlier, he had accidentally stuck his foot out as she walked by with a heavy tray. The plates had crashed, the hot food had splashed. Everyone had stared. Now he lifted his foot again like he might actually kick her. At the far end of the counter, a quiet man in a worn gray hoodie and faded jeans slowly stood up. Until that moment, most people thought he was just another broke stranger grabbing a cheap breakfast, but he was. He was a secret CEO who had been watching everything. And what he did next would not only change the waitress's life, it would change the whole diner forever. Before we go on, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to support this channel and tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now? Your city and country, I want to see you there. Hours earlier, that same morning, the diner looked like any other tired place on the edge of town. The sign outside flickered in and out as if it was too exhausted to stay on. Inside, the air smelled like burnt coffee, butter, and something that had been fried one too many times. The red leather booths had cracks in them. The floor tiles were chipped. And yet, for one woman, this broken little diner was the only thing keeping her and her son alive. Her name was Hannah Wells, 28 years old, brown hair tied back in a messy ponytail, dark circles under her eyes from too many sleepless nights. Her blue waitress uniform was a little too big and a little too faded, but she kept it neat. She had sewn a loose button back on that morning with shaking fingers. On her left wrist, hidden under the sleeve, was a rubber hospital band she still hadn't cut off. It had her 6-year-old son's name on it, Eli Wells. Eli had asthma and a heart problem the doctors were still trying to fully understand. That meant medicine. That meant bills. That meant Hannah needed every tip, every hour, every shift she could get. She had no husband to help, no parents to call, nobody to lean on. It was just her and her little boy in a small rented room with peeling paint and a leaky window. "Morning, Hannah," muttered Henry, the diner's owner, as he counted coins behind the counter. Henry was in his early 50s with gray hair and a belly that showed too many late-night burgers. He wasn't a bad man, but he was tired and scared. The diner was losing money. The landlord wanted higher rent. The cook kept threatening to quit. "Morning, Mr. Henry," Hannah answered with a small smile. She always tried to sound cheerful, even when her chest felt like it was full of broken glass. "You're late," grumbled Marta, the other waitress, as she wiped crumbs from a table. Marta wasn't exactly cruel, but she didn't believe in softness. "We open at 6, it's 6:10. "I'm sorry," Hannah said quickly, hanging up her coat. "The bus broke down and I had to walk the last part. I'll make it up, I promise." Marta just sniffed and walked away. At the far end of the counter near the window sat a man in his late 30s with short brown hair and a trimmed beard. His clothes looked simple: gray hoodie, black t-shirt, jeans, old sneakers. A faded backpack sat at his feet. He stirred his coffee slowly, eyes moving over everything in the diner. The cracked tiles, the broken sugar container, the way the cook yelled when the grill smoke got too thick, the way Henry rubbed his forehead like he had a headache that never went away. His name was Daniel Brooks, but nobody knew that yet. Nobody knew he was a CEO. Nobody knew he owned a huge company that bought small, dying businesses and helped bring them back to life. Nobody knew this quiet stranger had more money in his bank account than the whole town combined. As far as the diner was concerned, he was just that quiet guy with the backpack who orders black coffee and toast. "Can I warm that up for you?" Hannah asked gently, walking over with a coffee pot. Daniel looked up at her and gave a small smile. "Sure, thank you." She poured the coffee carefully, not wanting to spill a drop. Up close, Daniel could see how tired she looked. There was a tiny stain on her collar and her fingers shook just a little, but when she spoke, her voice was kind. "You doing okay today?" he asked softly. Hannah blinked, surprised. Most customers didn't ask her that. They just ordered, complained if something was wrong, and left. "Yeah," she lied. "I'm good. Busy is good, right?" "Sometimes," Daniel replied. "Sometimes busy just means you're too tired to cry." Hannah's smile wobbled. For a second he thought she might actually start crying in front of him, but then she cleared her throat, straightened her shoulders, and smiled again. "Well, if I'm too busy to cry, that means I'm still standing. I'll take that." Daniel watched her walk away, heart tight. He had visited many businesses over the years, but something about this place, about her, felt different. He had first come to Tony's Diner, now simply called Henry's Place, after he bought it from the original owner to see if it was worth saving. Numbers on a page could say one thing, people's hearts said something else. He had been coming in quietly for 2 weeks, sitting, watching, listening. He saw how Hannah always took the heaviest trays, how she always smiled at the old man who only tipped in coins, how she slipped a free slice of toast to a teenager who looked hungry and scared, how she apologized when people were rude even when it wasn't her fault. He also saw Frank. Frank was in his late 40s, expensive suit, golden watch, shiny shoes, loud voice. He worked at the bank downtown and liked people to know he had power. He came to the diner almost every morning and sat at the same booth near the middle where everyone could see him. And every morning he picked on Hannah. Sometimes it was little things. "The coffee's cold," he would say after letting it sit for 10 minutes. "Do you people not know how to do anything right?" Sometimes it was bigger things. "You dropped a fork," he'd sneer. "Are your hands broken or is your brain just slow?" The first time Daniel saw it, he thought maybe it was a bad day. The second time, he wondered if Frank was just unhappy with his own life. By the 10th time, Daniel knew this wasn't just stress. This was who Frank had chosen to be, a bully, a man who liked stepping on people he thought were beneath him. That morning, as the sun struggled through gray clouds and the breakfast rush grew louder, Frank walked in. The bell above the door jingled and Hannah's shoulders tensed for a second before she forced them to relax. "Good morning, Frank," she said, trying to sound normal. "Is it?" he said, not even looking at her, already scrolling on his phone. "We'll see if the service is better than yesterday. You dropped my check, remember? Embarrassing." "Yes, sir, what can I get you today?" "The usual, and try not to mess it up. It's not rocket science." Daniel's jaw clenched. He watched Hannah write down the order and walk back to the kitchen. Her hand slid to her pocket for a second. Daniel could see the edge of a folded paper sticking out. A bill. She squeezed the pocket, took a breath, and moved on. Minutes later, the diner filled up even more. A couple of kids pressed their faces to the glass of the pie display. An old woman argued with the jukebox that hadn't worked in months. Henry tried to fix the coffee machine and burned his finger. Hannah kept moving. Table 3, booth 5, refill at the counter, check on the cook, smile, apologize, run. Then her phone buzzed, just once. She knew she wasn't supposed to check her phone at work, but the vibration made her heart jump. The only person who texted her during the day was Eli's school or the hospital. She stepped behind the counter for a second, quick glance, a message from the hospital app. "Reminder, Eli's next test is overdue. Please contact billing." Her stomach flipped. She had already asked for more time last month. If she didn't pay something soon, they might stop giving him the medicine he needed. She swallowed hard, put the phone away, and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Everything okay?" Daniel asked quietly, his cup now half empty. "It has to be," Hannah answered, "because there's no other choice." Then she rushed off to grab Frank's order. The cook slid the plates onto the pass: eggs, bacon, pancakes, coffee. The tray was full and heavy. Hannah braced her arm under it and lifted. Her arms already ached from the morning rush, but she didn't slow down. She walked out from behind the counter, past Daniel, toward Frank's booth. The floor was a little sticky in one spot where juice had spilled earlier, but she didn't notice. Frank watched her come, lips already curled like he was ready to complain. Finally, he said loudly as she got close, "Do you people move in slow motion?" Several customers looked over. Hannah's face burned, but she kept her smile small and polite. "I'm sorry for the wait, sir. Here, your..." Her right foot hit the sticky spot. At the same time, Frank slid his shoe out just a little, just enough. Hannah didn't see it. Her heel caught, her ankle twisted. Everything happened at once. The tray tilted. The plates flew. Hot pancakes slapped against Frank's shirt. Syrup splashed across the table. Bacon hit the floor. The coffee cup tipped, hot liquid flying everywhere. Hannah's legs slid out from under her and she crashed down hard, her side hitting the edge of the table before she dropped to the floor. A loud gasp went through the diner. Someone dropped their fork. The old woman near the jukebox covered her mouth. Pain exploded in Hannah's side and knee. For a second, she couldn't breathe. The world went fuzzy around the edges. Then Frank stood up slowly, dramatically. He looked down at his stained shirt, then at the mess on the floor, then at Hannah. "You idiot," he snapped, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You clumsy, useless girl, look what you've done." I'm sorry," Hannah whispered, trying to push herself up. Her elbow slipped. She fell back again, her knee screamed. "Sorry," Frank barked. "You think sorry is going to fix this? I should make you pay for this shirt. Do you know how much it costs? It costs more than you make in a week, that's what." He stepped closer, his shoe bumped her arm, she flinched. "Get up," he shouted, "or do you want me to give you a reason to cry?" His voice echoed against the walls. No one moved, not Henry behind the counter, not Marta holding a stack of plates, not the teenagers near the pies. Some people looked away, some stared at their phones, some watched frozen. Frank lifted his right foot, just a little, like he might kick her tray out of the way, or maybe her hand, or maybe her ribs. Hannah's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. And that's when the words slipped out, raw and broken and honest. "Please, please don't kick me," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I'm already hurt." The diner went quiet. For a heartbeat, even the clock behind the counter seemed to pause. Then a chair scraped across the floor. Daniel stood up. He didn't move fast, he didn't shout. He just walked slowly and calmly from the end of the counter toward the middle of the diner where Frank stood over Hannah. His cup of coffee was still on the counter behind him, forgotten. "Hey," Daniel said, his voice low but clear, "that's enough." Frank turned, eyes flashing. "Who are you?" he snapped. "Mind your own business, this clumsy girl just ruined my morning." "She's not this girl," Daniel replied. "Her name is Hannah and you need to step back." "How do you know her name?" Frank scoffed. "You some kind of hero, huh? This is between the staff and the customers, go sit down." "No," Daniel said. His eyes were calm, but something behind them was sharp like steel. "This is between a bully and someone who's had enough." Henry finally snapped out of his shock and hurried over, wiping his hands on his apron. Okay, everybody calm down," he said, voice shaking. "Frank, I'm really sorry about your shirt. I'll pay for the dry cleaning. Hannah, get up please before somebody slips." Hannah tried again to push herself up. Her knee gave out and she bit back a cry. Daniel reached down, offering his hand. "May I help you?" he asked gently. She looked at him, confused, embarrassed, cheeks burning. Nobody ever knelt down for her. Nobody ever made her feel like she mattered. For a second she hesitated. Then she placed her shaking hand in his. His grip was firm but careful. He helped her up slowly, keeping one arm around her shoulders so she wouldn't fall again. "You okay?" he asked. I think so," she whispered, wincing. "Just my knee and my side. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Mr. Henry. I'll clean it up, I swear. Please don't fire me. I need this job. I really need this job." Frank snorted. "Maybe if you weren't daydreaming, you wouldn't be falling all over the place. Some people aren't meant to work around real customers." Daniel turned his head and looked straight at him. The easy warmth was gone from his eyes now. "Real customers," he said quietly. "Is that what you call yourself?" Frank rolled his eyes. "You have no idea who you're talking to. I work at Riverstone Bank. I handle big accounts. I know what real service looks like. This whole place is a joke, and this girl," he pointed at Hannah, "is the worst part of it." Hannah flinched at the word worst like it was a slap. Daniel took a slow breath, still holding Hannah steady. Inside, he could feel anger rising, hot and clear. But he had learned something long ago. Real power didn't need to shout. Real power stayed calm. "You're right about one thing," Daniel said. "This place has some problems. Things are broken. Some people are overworked. Some things need to change." "Finally, someone with eyes," Frank said, folding his arms. "Maybe the owner will listen to you. I've been telling them for months." Daniel cut him off with one raised hand. "But you're wrong about her," he continued. "Very wrong. She is not the worst part. She might be the best part." Frank laughed out loud, a harsh, ugly sound. "The best? Are you serious? She can't even carry a tray." Daniel turned to Hannah. "Do you want to sit down for a minute?" She shook her head. "If I sit, I might not get up again," she said with a weak little smile. "Please, I need to stay on the clock. I can't lose this shift." Daniel's jaw tightened. He knew right then this was not just about one fall or one rude customer or one broken diner. This was about a system that let people like Frank walk around thinking they could crush others and never face the truth. Henry cleared his throat nervously. "Look, sir, I'm really sorry about all this," he told Frank. "Let me comp your meal, free breakfast will get you a new." "No," Daniel said sharply. Everyone looked at him. Henry blinked. "Excuse me." Daniel gently let go of Hannah, making sure she had her hand on the back of a chair for balance, then reached into his pocket. He pulled out his wallet, not a fat one, not flashy, just simple black leather. From it, he took a card, a plain white card with simple black letters. He looked at Hannah first. "May I see your phone for a second?" She frowned. "My phone?" "Yes," he said softly, "trust me." Something in his voice made it hard to say no. She slowly pulled her cracked phone from her apron pocket and handed it to him. He typed quickly, then handed the phone and the card to her. She glanced down at the card, her eyes widened. On it were the words, Daniel Brooks, CEO Brooks Revital Solutions. Below that was a company logo she had seen on the news before. Her fingers trembled. You're a CEO, she whispered, like a real one from TV. "Last I checked," Daniel said lightly, "though I don't like being on TV very much." Henry's mouth fell open. Marta nearly dropped her plates. Even the cook peeked out from the kitchen door, eyebrows raised. Frank let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "You," he scoffed, "in that hoodie, please." Daniel shrugged. "Clothes don't change what's on paper, and what's on paper," he added, "is that this diner is currently under review by my company." Henry's knees almost gave out. "Under review," he repeated weakly. Daniel nodded. "I've been coming here for 2 weeks," he said. "Watching, listening, learning. I wanted to see the heart of this place, the truth, because sometimes numbers lie, but people," he glanced at Hannah, "people rarely do." A hush fell over the diner again. Even the old jukebox seemed to hold its breath. Daniel turned back to Frank. "You wanted to know who you're talking to," he said calmly. "Now you know." Frank's face went through 3 colors in 5 seconds, red, white, then a strange purple. "So what?" he snapped, trying to recover. "You think because you have some company you can lecture me? This girl still messed up my breakfast." Daniel's eyes hardened. "She had an accident, you made it cruelty." Frank opened his mouth to argue, but Daniel kept going. "I watched you every morning," he said. "I watched you belittle her. I watched you complain about little things just to feel big. I watched you mock the staff, threaten bad reviews, wave your job like a weapon. You think nobody notices?" He motioned around. "They notice, they just feel too small to fight back, but I'm not small." Frank's jaw clenched. "You can't talk to me like that," he hissed. "I'm a preferred client at this place. Henry, tell him I've been supporting this business for years." Henry swallowed, sweat beaded on his forehead. "Frank, you do come a lot." Daniel held up his hand again. "Mr. Henry, may I ask you something?" Henry nodded quickly. "Why, yes, sir." "How much damage has he done?" Daniel asked quietly. "Not in money, in your staff's spirit, in your reputation. How many times has he yelled loudly enough that other customers left?" Henry opened his mouth, then shut it. His eyes flicked to Hannah, then to Marta, then back to Daniel. His shoulders sagged. "More than once," he admitted. "More than 10 times. He's hard on everyone." Daniel nodded slowly. "And yet you let it go, because you're afraid to lose one paying customer." Henry didn't answer. He didn't have to. Daniel turned back to Frank, voice still calm. "I think it's time for a change," he said. "Here, what's going to happen." Frank crossed his arms, defensive. "I'm listening," he spat. "You're going to leave," Daniel said simply. "Now, without shouting at anyone, without throwing another insult. You are not welcome back here." Frank barked out a laugh, this one smaller and more unsure. "You can't ban me," he sneered. "You don't own this place." Daniel tilted his head. "Not yet," he said, "but that's changing." He turned to Henry. "Mr. Henry," he said, "I've reviewed your numbers and this location. I was going to wait until next week to tell you, but I think today is the right day." Henry wiped his hands again like he was trying to clean away his nerves. Tell me what? My company is prepared to buy a majority share in this diner, Daniel said. We'll handle the debts, update the equipment, fix the building, and train the staff. In return, we'll take over management and profit sharing. You'll still have a role here if you want it. But the culture, he added, looking directly at Frank, will change starting now. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Frank stared stunned. You can't be serious, he said. I am, Daniel replied, very serious, and as my first unofficial act, he turned to Henry. Sir, I recommend you ban any customer who repeatedly abuses your staff, starting with him. He nodded toward Frank. Henry hesitated for half a second. Years of fear battled with a sudden, strange rush of courage. Then he straightened his back. Frank, he said, voice steadier than usual, I think you should go, and don't come back. Frank gaped. You're choosing her over me, he demanded, pointing at Hannah like she was trash. Henry glanced at Hannah's pale face, at the bruise already forming on her knee. Then he thought of all the mornings she came early, all the nights she stayed late, all the times she smiled even when she looked ready to fall apart. Yes, Henry said quietly, yes, I am. Red flooded Frank's face. He grabbed a napkin and tried to wipe the syrup from his shirt. You'll regret this, he muttered. I'll tell everyone this place is garbage. I'll leave reviews. Daniel stepped closer, just enough that Frank had to look up. You do what you feel you need to, he said calmly. And I'll do what I need to, which includes making sure this diner becomes a place where kindness is normal and cruelty is not welcome. Something in his eyes made Frank step back. With one last glare around the room, at Hannah, at Henry, at the silent customers, Frank stormed out, the bell above the door jangling wildly behind him. For a moment no one spoke, then the old woman near the jukebox began to clap, softly at first, then louder. The teenagers joined. A man at the corner table started clapping too. Soon the whole diner was full of applause. Hannah stood there, one hand on the back of the chair, eyes wide, chest rising and falling quickly. She felt like she was dreaming. Nobody had ever stood up for her like that. Nobody had ever told a man like Frank no for her sake. Daniel turned back to her, the applause still echoing. Are you sure you don't want to sit down? He asked again. This time she nodded. Just for a second, she said, legs trembling. He helped her into a booth, slid into the seat across from her, and waited while she caught her breath. Why? She asked finally, voice tiny. Why did you do that? You don't even know me. Daniel rested his arms on the table. I know enough, he said softly. I know you work hard. I know you treat people with respect even when they don't deserve it. I know you carry more than anyone can see, and I know good people get crushed unless someone steps in. Her eyes filled with tears. I can't lose this job, she whispered. I have a son, he's sick, he needs medicine and tests, and her voice broke. I was just trying to finish this shift so I could go talk to the billing office again. Daniel nodded slowly. That's what that message was about. She blinked. You saw. I saw your hand shake when you read it, he said. I've seen that look before, worry, fear, the kind that doesn't go away when you sleep. She gave a small, broken laugh. I don't really sleep, she admitted, not much. Daniel took a deep breath. He hadn't planned to do this so fast, but seeing her on the floor, hearing her beg not to be kicked, feeling the entire diner freeze, it pushed something inside him he usually kept quiet. Hannah, he said carefully, as I told you, my company helps businesses like this, but part of that isn't just fixing buildings and menus, it's about people, the right people, the ones who make a place worth saving. She frowned a little, not following. Okay. He leaned forward. I'd like to offer you something, he said. 2 things, actually. Her heart sped up. What things? First, Daniel said, you are not losing this job, not today, not after this. If anything, I'd like you to have more security. Once the papers are signed, I want you to stay on with a raise. Her jaw dropped. A raise? Yes, he said, a real one, enough to help you breathe a little. Tears spilled down her cheeks now. She wiped them with the back of her hand, laughing and crying at the same time. You're joking, right? I don't joke about people's lives, Daniel replied gently. And second, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Second, I'd like to set up a meeting with a doctor I know, a good one, off the record. I saw the hospital name on your app when I typed in my number. My company has partnerships with several medical programs. I can't promise everything, he added quickly, but I can promise this, you won't face your son's bills alone anymore. Hannah stared at him like he had just told her the sky was falling and lifting at the same time. You'd help my son, you don't even know his name. Eli, Daniel said softly, you whispered it when you checked your phone earlier. She covered her mouth with her hand, shoulders shaking. You remembered, she whispered. I make a habit of remembering what matters, he said. Henry approached the booth slowly, hat in his hands now, eyes wet. Sir, he began, voice rough. Daniel, I don't know what to say. I didn't mean to let things get this bad. I was just trying to keep the doors open. I know, Daniel said. Fear makes people quiet, but we're going to fix that together. He looked around at the staff and customers who were still listening. This diner is going to change, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. We're going to fix the lights, repair the floor, clean the vents, train the staff, and upgrade the menu. But most of all, we're going to change how people are treated here. He pointed at the spot where Hannah had fallen. Nobody, he said firmly, will ever be allowed to stand over someone on the ground and make them feel smaller than dust. Not in this place. Marta nodded, eyes shining. The teenagers at the pie case looked at Hannah with new respect. The old woman by the jukebox dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. Hannah swallowed, her voice barely more than a whisper. Why me? She asked. There are lots of people in the world. Why did you notice me? Daniel smiled, small and gentle. Because the way you treat others when no one's watching tells the truth about who you are, he said. I saw you slip toast to that hungry boy last week and tell him it was extra. I saw you refill that old man's coffee 3 times even though he only had enough money for one. I saw you pick up trash outside the door on your break because you said, if it looks better, maybe customers will smile more. Her cheeks flushed. You noticed all that. Yes, he said simply. I notice people who quietly try to make the world softer even when their own world feels hard. She looked down at her hands. For the first time in a long time, the weight pressing down on her chest felt a little lighter. What if it doesn't work? She asked softly. What if the diner still closes? What if the plan fails? Daniel leaned back thinking. Then we keep trying, he said. Maybe this diner becomes something else. Maybe you do. Maybe you won't be a waitress forever. I see leadership in you, strength, compassion. Those are things I can't teach, but I can teach business. The word leadership sounded strange in her ears, like a costume that was too big. Me, a leader, she laughed weakly. I can't even carry a tray without. You carried this place? Daniel interrupted softly. You just didn't know it. People won't say it out loud, but they come back because of the way you make them feel. And today everyone in this room saw that. They saw who the real problem was, and it wasn't you. She took a shaky breath, then nodded slowly. Okay, she whispered. I'll try, for Eli, for me, for this place. He smiled. That's all I ask. In the days that followed, the change began. The for sale whispers were replaced with did you hear stories. A crew came to look at the wiring. A designer came to measure the booths. New rules went up on the wall. Respect is not optional. Staff and customers will be treated with kindness. Hannah still woke up early and took the bus. She still wore her blue uniform, she still carried trays, but something inside her had shifted. She walked a little taller, she smiled a little more for herself, not just for others. And somewhere in her bag was a white business card and a folded note from Daniel. You are not the floor others walk on, you are the reason the room is warm, D. One afternoon, as she wiped down a table, her phone buzzed again. Her heart jumped, then steadied when she saw the message. Appointment confirmed for Eli, covered by support program, call us to schedule. Her knees almost buckled, but this time from relief, she pressed the phone to her chest and closed her eyes. Thank you, she whispered, not sure if she was talking to Daniel, to God, to the universe, or all three. Across the diner, Daniel watched her, sipping his coffee. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to, he just smiled to himself. Sometimes, he thought, the most powerful thing you can do with power is use it to lift someone who believes they deserve to be stepped on. And somewhere deep inside, the echo of her plea, "Please don't kick me, I'm already hurt," turned into something new, a quiet promise that from now on she would not be the one on the floor, she would be the one standing. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel to support our growth, like this video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps us share more life-changing stories that remind us kindness can rewrite someone's whole life in a single moment.